Hello again, Homestuck YouTube. Az here. Since you last heard from me, the Homestuck Iceberg video has been taking off in a way that I really didn't expect it to. Thanks! Because of this, I decided to clip a few bits of it and upload them to my TikTok account, where they have also found a huge audience. However, TikTok seems to have really taken to one clip in particular. Homestuck shipping is inherently weird for many reasons. First and foremost, there's troll romance. Troll romance comes in 4 quadrants, each being represented by a suit from a deck of cards, and each representing a different kind of relationship. The closest thing to human romance would be the heart suit, matespritship. The spade, kismecissitude, can be best described by a mix of intense hatred and sexual attraction. Moiraligence, the diamond, is closely related to the idea of a sort of platonic soulmate. And the last and most complicated of the 4, auspisticism, is denoted by the club and includes a third party. The auspicious often acts as a facilitator of interactions between 2 others who otherwise would have an unhealthy kismecissitude. Fans not only have regular relationships to consider within Homestuck, but also 3 other branches of possible romance for every character. Alright, this part isn't in the script, but I'm going to include it anyway. Someone once said on Tumblr that troll romance is really easy to understand if you just look at the cast of iCarly. So Carly and Freddie have the heart, Freddie and Sam have the spade, Sam and Carly have the diamond, and Freddie and Sam are the ones bickering, and Carly is the auspicious in the club one. So there's a really easy way to understand those relationship dynamics at, like, the base level.
Oh, the iCarly example. Classic.
Everything I've learned about Homestuck has been against my will.
POV, you're talking to me in middle school.
Troll romance makes way too much sense, and I hate it.
Are you gonna describe leprechauns?
Is there a want for this content? Because don't tempt me.
It's just so hectic.
There is a want! I want it! I've wanted it for years! Please!
Please!
I want it, please.
Yes!
Hold on there, bud. The most complicated shipping is actually leprechaun ships.
I'm tirelessly researching leprechaun shipping for you all, don't worry. Okay, sure, fine, I get it. Haha, you all said. Hee hee. This nerd explained all 4 quadrants of troll romance. Isn't that so funny? Wouldn't it be hilarious if I now asked them to explain the 9 distinct facets of leprechaun romance? Oh, I am such a little trickster. Well, buckle up, idiots. I know you said it as a bit, but you underestimated one thing: the level at which I commit. So here we go. Without further ado, I present to you the intricacies of leprechaun romance. But wait, it can't just be that easy. No, you have to earn this, you little shits. To truly understand leprechaun romance, you all need to become familiar with the culture. You need to know the ins and outs, the thoughts and feelings that are attributed to each charm. Know the leprechauns themselves, so to speak. That's right. You guessed it. Get ready for a deep dive into the felt. Long before we knew them as leprechauns, the Felt existed as a gang made up of 16 mobsters that operate across numerous universes and timelines in the service of their master and leader, Lord English, the Lord of Time. Their most notable incarnation appears on the troll home planet, Alternia, where they are a rival gang to the Midnight Crew. The Felts have a billiards motif to their appearance and character, in contrast with the playing card theme of the Midnight Crew. The standard members of the gang wear completely green clothes, save for a brightly colored hat with a number on it corresponding to one of the 15 non-cue balls. 8 and below are solid colors, while 9 and up are striped and use white flanks on their hats. Their headquarters on Alternia is an entirely green mansion based on pictures of the real-world Carson Mansion located in Eureka, California. The recurring use of this bright green color, plus the name The Felt itself, corresponds to the green felt used to line pool tables. According to Lord English himself, their skin also feels like the felt material used for these tables. Gross! In Homestuck, the Felt first appear in the first intermission, although their existence in canon predates this by a lot. In the intermission, the Felt are chiefly encountered by the Midnight Crew. After Lord English knocked down one of his casinos, Midnight Crew leader Spade Slick vowed revenge, and so the crew stormed the Felt's hideout with the purpose of wiping out every member, destroying their 1,000 clocks, and plundering Lord English's vault to make him pay. By the end of the intermission, all of the Felt except Snowman, Lord English, and Doc Scratch are dead, at least in the timeline Spade Slick finds himself in. Though several of the dead numbered Felt return in Act 5, Act 2's Scratch interlude due to the gang's capacity for inter-timeline travel. Oh, what's that? You didn't know that the members of the Felt all have distinct and different time travel powers? Really? You didn't skip the intermission, did you? That's important world-building material. I can't believe this! Very well. I guess I'll just have to individually introduce you to every member of the Felt. Let's begin. Number 1. Itchy. Itchy's name comes from ichi, the Japanese word for the number 1. It also alludes to the name of Doc Scratch and is indicative of his highly strung demeanor. Itchy has the ability to move at incredible speeds, moving through rooms and performing simple actions in the blink of an eye. It's possible that Itchy's speed actually stems from an ability to speed up time for himself, however, an excessive consumption of caffeine may also be a contributing factor. Itchy employs a single-shot J. Stevens Arms Company .22 pistol for ranged combat, and a Louisville Slugger Babe Ruth baseball bat for hitting singles. Number 2. Doze. Doze's name phonetically resembles dos, the name for the number 2 in Spanish and several similar languages. It also describes his slow, languid personality. Doze's ability is to slow time down for himself. This allows him to stretch sensations of pain over a long period of time, giving him some level of resistance to attack. Outwardly, however, his power mostly just makes him seem incredibly slow, forming a matching pair with Itchy. Doze uses a double-barreled shotgun for long-range combat and employs a simple 2x4 piece of lumber in a melee. Number 3. Trace. Trace's name phonetically resembles trace, the name for the number 3 in Spanish and similar languages. It also describes his ability to trace where people have been in the past, which is similar to the ability of a shark to follow small traces of blood, particularly in pop culture. Because of this, and perhaps as a reference to the concept of a pool shark, Trace, like Finn, who we will learn about shortly, bears a resemblance to a shark, with sharp teeth jutting from his mouth and the collar on his suit evoking a shark's fin. Trace can see and interact with people's past trails, and is even able to hear past conversations through them. If Trace is caught interacting with someone in the past, however, that may alert them to where he will be at some point in the future. Trace has one weapon, a Chiappa triple-barrel shotgun. Number 4. Clover. Clover's name references the shamrock associated with Ireland and leprechauns in popular culture. See? We're getting there, but not yet. In particular, it refers to the four-leafed variety of the clover, which is said to bring great luck, alluding to Clover's abilities. Clover's power is incredible luck, which makes him very difficult to actually harm. He states that a gun pointed at him would probably just jam. Despite this making him immune to grievous harm, he can still be influenced with the use of less lethal instruments, such as a rolled-up newspaper. Clover uses a Glock 4D5 as a ranged weapon and a 2x4 piece of lumber, or a 4x2 held sideways. Number 5. Finn. Finn's name is an archaic nickname for a United States $5 bill, from the Yiddish word fin meaning 5. It also alludes to the shark's fin and Finn's shark-like appearance, with a pointed snout and sharp protruding teeth. Like Trace, Finn's appearance matches his powers, which are similar to a shark's ability to track prey, and may allude to the concept of a pool shark once again. Fin being French for end or finish, from Latin finis, may also reference his prognostic abilities. Finn's ability is to see where people will be and what they will do in the future by following their orange future trail, forming a pair with Trace. When Finn follows someone's future trail, it is possible for that future trail to interact with him, even as far as attacking him, essentially allowing others to attack him from the future. Finn employs a Gammo R77 revolver as a ranged weapon, possibly because R7 looks similar to the shape of his head, and a fish bat for melee, alluding to his aquatic appearance. Number 6. Die. Die's name alludes to a singular dice, a typically six-sided gambling artifact. Die is also a verb meaning to stop living, fitting the use of his juju. Unlike most members of the Felt, Dai seems to have no innate abilities of his own. Instead, he is in possession of a juju, resembling a pop-cultural voodoo doll, which he uses to travel between timelines unassisted. He may be considered part of a pair with Crowbar, another powerless leprechaun adjacent to him in the Felt, or with Stitch, who uses similar juju dolls. Dai uses a 6-cylinder S&W Model 19 firearm and a shillelagh for melee combat. Wait, hold on a second. There was something weird there. You heard it too, right? Juju. Juju? What is that, I hear you saying? Obviously some kind of made-up word, right? Surely this won't lead us deeper down the rabbit hole, right? Oh, dear viewer, I'm so glad you asked. Jujus are a variety of magical objects with a complex system of rules governing their use. Jujus lack any sort of traceable origin, and some cherubs believe that they simply appear spontaneously out of nothing. Each juju exists as a single entity across all realities and cannot be copied or permanently destroyed. Should there ever appear to be two copies of one juju, one of the copies is either an illusion or an error that will eventually be erased from existence, or, more commonly, is destined to end up becoming the other version at some later time. According to Caliborn, a juju always has an owner, and one can only take someone's juju if the original owner is killed or willingly gives it away. During the course of the intermission, many jujus possessing varying levels of control over time are used by members of the Felt. Many jujus act similarly to objects in a bootstrap paradox, where an object travels through time from the future to the past, thereby creating itself in an eternal cycle. Because the item is always becoming itself, it has no true or traceable origin. This would also explain why a juju cannot be destroyed, because destroying it at any point in time would result in the juju not being able to exist in the first place so that it could be destroyed, creating a grandfather paradox, an unstable loop that would result in a doomed timeline. But the abilities of Juju Breakers also disputes this somewhat. A Juju Breaker is a similarly rare item that is able to destroy a Juju and negate any and all of its effects. Also worth noting is that the use of the word Juju in Homestuck to describe any vaguely mysterious magical MacGuffin is insensitive to the religious practices of West Africa, where the term actually comes from. Now, let's take a look at an example of a Juju, shall we? How about, let's say, Lil Cal? At first glance, the average reader may think that many versions of Cal exist in Homestuck's many universes. Lil Cal has appeared on Beta Earth, Alpha Earth, Durst, the Trolls Meteor, Alternia, and even in Caliborn's Doomed Session. However, Lil Cal is a Juju, meaning that all of these are actually the same puppet. The timeline quote-unquote begins with Cal on Durst. He was manifested there out of the void of Paradox Space by Gamzee to give Dave nightmares. He is then thrown out of Dave's window by Rose and lands on Bro's hoverboard to be taken to the ectobiology lab. He is paired with Baby Dirk on a meteor headed for Earth. This pair eventually becomes Dave's Bro and Lil Cal as we first see him, a puppet used by Bro to torment Dave. Bro even uses Cal as a weapon, causing him to be torn to shreds in a battle with Dave. During his entrance to Suburb, Dave's Colonel Sprite is prototyped with the pieces of Cal, resulting in Cal Sprite. This timeline is soon retconned to remove Cal Sprite from existence. In the corrected timeline, the pieces of Cal are collected and repaired by Bro, and he uses Cal to fight Jack Noir. Bro loses, and Jack takes Cal as a trophy and carries him into the Trolls Session. He uses Cal to attack an Irradiabot, which then time travels with Cal in tow, only to be hit by a meteor and crash land on Alternia, only then to be found by Irradia later. Cal's tattered remains eventually end up repaired in Kanaya's hive with a cool felt-themed outfit, and he is targeted by the Black Queen as part of Doc Scratch's genetic creation. It is then assumed that Scratch transfers Cal into Gamzee's possession, who uses the Juju to taunt and torment Terezi. Gamzee manages to hold on to Cal for over 3 years before finally delivering him to Alpha Jack Noir along with a Juju Breaker, so that Jack can become Jack English as he is colloquially known. But wait, I hear you saying, isn't a Juju indestructible? You fool. You buffoon. There was a Scratch! Lil Cal and Baby Dirk were copied on their meteor and sent to both Beta and Alpha Earth, Alpha Cal and Dirk grow up together in the future of Alpha Earth before Dirk drops him into the burning ocean. We later discover that Alpha Earth is actually the dead planet on which Caliborn lives. Cal is excavated by Gamzee and delivered back to Caliborn so that he may eventually become a vessel for Caliborn's soul, as well as Arqueous Sprite and Gamzee's. This occurs in the final battle between the 8 humans and Caliborn, and Roxy then banishes little Cal into the void. This allows Gamzee, at a much earlier point in time, to conjure Lil Cal out of the void and into Dave's room on Durst, so that the cycle may begin anew. That wasn't so hard to understand, was it? So, now that we understand the simple concept of a Juju, back to the individual felt members and their specifically stupid time powers, so that we can hope to better understand leprechaun culture and truly grasp the importance of each sector of their romance chart. Remember, you asked for this. Dai's voodoo doll, a Juju. Dai has a set of pins, each corresponding to a member of the Felt or the Midnight Crew. If these pins are inserted into the voodoo doll, the person holding the doll jumps to a timeline where that member is dead. If a pin is removed, they will jump to a timeline where that member is still alive. Got it? Good. Moving on. Number 7. Crowbar. Crowbar's name comes from the number 7's resemblance to the prying tool, which is also Crowbar's primary weapon and method of interacting with the world. Unlike many members of the Felt, Crowbar does not seem to have an innate power, and instead he is almost always seen with his namesake Crowbar, a Juju breaker which can destroy any temporal artifact and completely negate its effect on the timeline, allowing him to counter many other members of the gang, perhaps assisting in his high-ranking role. While the crowbar is Crowbar's primary melee weapon, in its absence he is proficient with a baseball bat, augmented with lengths of barbed wire, and in ranged combat he has been known to use a Scorpion submachine gun. Interestingly, he uses his bat and firearm with the opposite hand to the one he uses for crowbarring. Unfortunately, there is no gun pun here. Number 8. Snowman. Snowman is the 8th member of the Felt and was originally the Black Queen of the Trolls and Sinisphere. She is the only female and Carapacian member of the Felt. The name Snowman refers to the number 8 looking like a little snowman, and is a nickname given to a pair of pocket or hole 8s in a game of poker. While wandering the ruins of Alternia, she was approached by Doc Scratch, who presumably recruited her into the Felt, giving her the powers and the identity of Snowman. Her lifespan is directly tied to that of the Alternian Genesis Frog, making her quite literally the Alternian universe. She can still be killed, but doing so would mean the end for the Trolls universe, giving her an ultimate deterrent. The specifics of how Scratch gave her these powers are unknown, but it made her blood blue, the color representing the Alternian universe. Incidentally, it is also the color of the liquid contained inside Magic 8 Balls. This may be related to her number, as the 8 ball must be pocketed last in 8-ball pool. If it is pocketed earlier, the player who pocketed it loses. Because she is Carapacian, she is not a leprechaun, and thus we simply do not give a fuck about her right now. Number 9. Stitch. Stitch's name comes from the proverb, "A stitch in time saves 9." In the proverb, "in time" is used to mean overtime. However, Stitch, as a time-traveling tailor, has the ability to literally make stitches in the fabric of time. Stitch is a, quote, damn good tailor and is responsible for mending any tears that appear in either of Lord English's Cairo overcoats, and also any of the felt effigies he curates, which are also jujus. These effigies have magical properties binding them to the mortality of someone depending on what hat they wear. Damage done to the person represented by the effigy will be reflected on the effigy itself. Using his tailoring skills, it is also possible for Stitch to repair said damage by repairing the associated damage on the effigy. The scar on his own face is presumably a result of the use of this ability. He uses the effigies as blunt weapons, and in ranged combat he is seen to use a Tommy gun of the type traditionally associated with Prohibition-era gangsters. Another no-pun gun. Number 10. Sawbuck. Sawbuck's name comes from the word sawbuck, a nickname given to a $10 bill in the United States thanks to the presence of the Roman numeral for 10, X, appearing on Civil War-era bills. The letter X is said to resemble a sawbuck, which is a structure intended to undergo heavy wear and tear as it is used to support wood for cutting into pieces. This may be a reference to Sawbuck's sturdy human shield-like powers. Whenever Sawbuck takes physical damage, he and his attacker are both sent to the same random point in the current timeline. Damage done by the removal of a weapon from his body also triggers the effect, though relatively non-damaging attacks, such as unconsciousness brought on by asphyxiation, do not. Sawbuck employs a shotgun in ranged combat, possibly referencing the ammunition sometimes used in shotguns referred to as buckshot, used for killing larger targets, not unlike Sawbuck himself. He is also seen using a horse riding crop as a melee weapon, referencing one alternate name for a sawbuck, sawhorse. Number 11. Matchsticks. The 2 digits on Matchstick's hat could be likened to a pair of matchsticks, or even to matching sticks, hence his name. Perhaps coincidentally, the word matchsticks also has 11 letters. Matchsticks, as fire-creating implements, also relate to Matchstick's specific skill set. Matchsticks has the ability to travel through time using fires as a gateway. To prevent temporal duplicates of himself from following him through the flames, Matchsticks carries around a fire extinguisher to put out a fire after he emerges from it. He will also use this extinguisher as a bludgeoning weapon in close quarters, and for ranged combat he employs a Walther PPK, an ironically small gun for one of the Felt's larger members. Number 12. Eggs. Eggs' name refers to the dozens that eggs are traditionally sold in, and the type of device he uses to time travel. Eggs does not seem to have a power of his own. Instead, he travels through time using an egg timer juju to go back in time haphazardly and stupidly, and possibly into another timeline. He is notably prone to making a mess of it. In melee combat, Eggs uses a large spiked mace, and in ranged combat he employs a short shotgun, possibly 12 gauge. Number 13. Biscuits. Biscuits' name refers to the baker's dozen, 13, a quantity in which baked goods such as biscuits were at one point traditionally sold, and to the baking device that is his juju. He possesses a special juju oven with strange and unexplained temporal powers. Riding inside this oven, he often travels through time with his similarly non-powered partner, using Eggs as time-traveling egg timer. Biscuits' oven has the power to send him forward in time by the amount he sets it to, at an astounding speed of 1 second per second. Despite this rather unremarkable power, it would be incorrect to say that it does nothing. Club's Deuce set some C4 to detonate in a few seconds and tossed it in, but they still had time to safely wheel it away. It is possible that the inside of the oven is paused for a set amount of time, though the outside remains unaffected. In melee combat, Biscuits employs a large battle axe adorned with a skull motif, and he uses a Chiappa Rhino handgun for range. Number 14. Quarters. Quarters' name is phonetically similar to 14, the French name for the number 14. In English, a quarter also refers to 1/4, 1/4 of a dollar being a common coin in the United States, alluding to Quarters' unique jujus. He uses a series of magical coins to transport himself and his fellow Felt members around. Quarters owns 1 coin for each 2 members of the Felt. With a flip of the coin, the paired-up members can switch positions on different timelines. Quarters' hefty frame makes it easy for him to carry around a heavy minigun for ranged combat, and he is seen using a hook-jaw monkey wrench resembling his own silhouette for closer quarters fights. Number 15. Cans. Cans' name is phonetically similar to cons, the French name for the number 15. Cans has the ability to literally punch you into next week, which he uses twice in the intermission, once to send Diamond's Droog into the next week where he is grocery shopping, and another time to send Heart's boxcars into the next calendar year. We also see him using this ability to send characters flying through space in the S-Collide animation. He simply fights with his fists alone because he needs little else to defend himself. Doc Scratch. Doc Scratch is an officer of Lord English and the first guardian of Alternia, meaning he possesses ungodly reality-altering powers and near omniscience. He appears as a humanoid figure in a white and green suit with a white handgun. His head is shaped like a cue ball, though the lack of an outline makes it look less like a ball and more like a hole in space. He fits into the billiards concept introduced by the Felt as the cue ball, and his name is an obvious reference to the pool term for pocketing it. This relates to how Doc Scratch would die in order to bring forth Lord English, because, as he said, he is an excellent host. It may also play on, quote, Old Scratch, a traditional name for Satan. Scratch also means to erase or eliminate, which reflects English's role as the demon that will destroy the universe. He is not a leprechaun, but rather a genetic paradox clone of Little Cal, an all-knowing cue ball, and various genetic codes. But, once again, not a leprechaun, so forget all about him. Lord English. Lord English is an indestructible, all-powerful demon summoned at the end of the universe, although his time travel abilities allow him to appear prior to his actual summoning. Though the demon's true form is an amalgam of various powerful identities, he was originally the cherub Caliborn as a child, who obtained unlimited power and unconditional immortality by clearing a dead session of Suburb. As a result, he apparently cannot be destroyed by ordinary means, but only through the exploitation of a number of time-based glitches and loopholes. He is the overall main antagonist in Homestuck as a whole. Lord English is named after the pool term English, meaning spin on the cue ball, which refers to his relationship with Doc Scratch, who represents the cue ball. English may further extend the billiards parallel as the cue stick, using Scratch, the first guardian of Alternia, in order to affect other individuals on his field of play, and to ensure his summoning. Indeed, his scepter and peg leg resemble a cue. Now, I know what I said before about the other non-leprechauns, but this big cherub guy is actually important to what we're talking about. Whew! That was a long tangent. But hey, now you have the necessary context for leprechaun romance, a thing you wanted. Anyway, now that we know all of those guys, how did they come to exist in the first place? Well, that's why Lord English's younger self, Caliborn, is so important. Caliborn's Suburb session is what's known as a dead session, meaning it is almost unrecognizable compared to other sessions, with victory and defeat being dictated by totally different terms. It is considered to be the extreme difficulty of Suburb and is designed to be impossible to win. A dead session exists almost exclusively for the purpose of punishing its player for attempting to play the game alone. The game begins upon entry when Skya turns into a solid black sphere, whereupon it explodes in an event known as the First Break. From this blast, 15 new planets emerge and scatter across the medium before falling into orbit around the former location of Skya, now occupied by a black hole. The player's goal is to take over and destroy each planet in order, with the exception of the 8th planet, which must be destroyed last or else the session is lost. On each world, the player must crush all forms of resistance before venturing into the planet's core to retrieve a powerful cue ball bomb. The bomb isn't strong enough to destroy a planet by itself. Rather, the explosive must be carefully placed on the surface of the planet such that the force of its detonation pushes the subjugated world into the black hole, or sinks it. Each planet is more difficult to defeat than the one before it, and there is a time limit on each planet, which gets shorter as the player conquers each one. If a player fails to destroy a planet in time, the bomb detonates prematurely out of position and the session is lost. To assist the player, every time they conquer a planet, a leprechaun minion is generated and becomes their servant, each bearing a unique magical power. See? Now you know why this is important. The members of the Felt, save for Snowman and Doc Scratch, are leprechauns originating in Caliborn's dead session. To achieve victory, Caliborn learned how to organize his leprechauns into a team and use their diverse powers together to overcome the session's challenges. So, now that we know their origin, let's talk about the species both biologically and culturally. We are so close to the sweet romance, people. Hang in there! The physical appearances of leprechauns are diverse, however they all share the same light green skin color and possess magical powers. Their skin feels like the felt surface of a billiards table, but their anatomy resembles that of a carapacian. This may be because both species are generated by a Suburb session. Their size can vary from tiny, like Clover, to enormous, like Cans. Their blood is red, as displayed repeatedly in the first intermission. According to Arania, most of their culture and customs revolve around luck. She fails to go into any greater detail, becoming sidetracked by leprechaun romance. Wait, did you hear that right? Are we finally here? Are we about to learn about motherfucking leprechaun romance? You bet your sweet candy ass we are. Buckle in. Here's everything we know in Homestuck canon about leprechaun romance. Leprechauns have a complex system of romance consisting of 9 charms: heart, moon, star, clover, diamond, horseshoe, balloon, rainbow, and pot of gold. One of these, presumably the heart, corresponds to the concept of romantic love as known by both trolls and humans. The other 8 charms are related to this by a continuum of relationships established by japery. Unlike the quadrants, instead of attempting to have only a single relationship with another individual per quadrant, leprechauns strive to share as many charms with their partner as possible, with a pair sharing 3 or more charms being called the trove. There are a possible 466 troves if the order of the charms does not matter, and 181,440 if they do, with some troves being more conducive to reproduction than others. While Arania's exposition on the matter was interrupted, an extended version of her lecture posted later in the comic by Andrew Hussey confirms the species reproduces homosexually. This does in fact mean that every leprechaun member of the Felt is, quote, super gay. And now, here is Arania's full explanation of the matter as it appears in the comic proper.
The problem is that when the subject of leprechaun romance is broached, our overly obsessive troll intellects instantly assume the most ingratiating posture of admiration imaginable, which makes it hard. Hard to give it proper academic focus, I mean, because of how great it is. But we will do our best to understand regardless. Trolls have only 4 forms of romance, and though we consider it a complicated subject, spanning a wide range of emotions, social conventions, and implications for reproduction, it is ultimately a superficial slice of what leprechauns consider the full body of romantic experience. Our concept of romance, in spite of its capacity to fill our art and literature and to rule our individual destinies like little else, is still just that, a single, quaternary concept. A concept that's usually denoted by 4 symbols: heart, spade, diamond, and club. Leprechaun romance is much more complicated than that. Leprechaun romance needs 9 symbols. The 9 quadrants of leprechaun romance are considerably more nuanced than our quaint notions of romance, and certainly more alien. In fact, so conditioned is my own understanding of romance that I can't help but refer to them as quadrants, when in fact they are not quadrants at all. They are referred to as charms. One of the charms is characterized by romantic love, as understood by both trolls and humans. However, after that, all bets are off. There is no division between black or red, concupiscent or conciliatory. Instead, their charms comprise a spectral continuum of more subtly varying types of relationships, most of which are established in mutual chicanery, such as the exchange of pranks, coy riddles, slapstick shenanigans, and games of chance. Furthermore, a pair of leprechauns is not limited to a single charm. A relationship may be defined by multiple charms at once. In fact, some of the most interesting relationships arise from exotic charm combinations. A stable relationship consisting of 3 or more charms is called a trove. These advanced relationships are often viewed as the ideal end result for a romance, much the way certain pairing rituals are for humans. No charm is specifically tied to procreation, though any type of relationship could begin waxing concupiscent if Lady Luck should so decide. Certain charm combinations are known to be more conducive to fertility than others. If the leprechaun pair has been so blessed, they will begin an elaborate coupling process culminating in a lively mating jig. The jigs are specific to the charms, of course, similar to how different types of music lend themselves to various styles of dance. While their romance is endlessly captivating, leprechaun reproduction may be the most interesting subject of all, particularly from a perspective of detailed anatomical study, which I will get to shortly. But first, it bears pointing out that while for humans, reproductive relationships are exclusively heterosexual, and for trolls, they are bisexual, for leprechauns, they are exclusively homosexual. Yes, you heard right. That means the Felt are exclusively gay. A graphic description of the reproductive process is as follows. Weird frog penis, muppet buttock, fish puppet pelvis, magic gnome phallus, elf eggs, burrowed fuck these, except Uraki proboscis, coarse kermit adoptable, dragged across each other's gleeful faces, wrist deep in puppet ass, and each are three proboscis lips, each soft, bulbous bottom, kind of jutting out and impudent.
And there you have it. That's literally all we know about leprechaun romance in Homestuck canon. No more, no less. Don't say I didn't warn you. Are you satisfied now? Because I'm not. It's not enough. We barely know anything here. So bear with me, I'm gonna get a little speculative. Let's take a look at that charm chart again. Does this remind you of anything? To me, it looks like a classic D&D alignment chart, and I have a theory that it works in a similar way. We obviously know that the heart in the top left represents love as we know it, and that leprechaun romance is based mostly on pranks and tricks of various sorts. But take a closer look. There's another symbol in there that we should already be familiar with. A diamond. I'm choosing to look at this true neutral diamond as a sort of modified take on Moiralegence. The two leprechauns sharing this charm would be similarly involved in a sort of soulmate-style relationship while still remaining entwined with each other's hijinks. Perhaps this charm represents a team-up of sorts, two pranksters coming together as one to ensnare others in their jovial traps. This would also make the diamond, the halfway point between every lineup of charms, truly neutral. Since we've already discussed the heart, let's talk about the pot of gold next, as the antithesis to the heart. Some of you may be thinking I'm about to discuss the pot of gold as some sort of allegory to the idea of a chismesis, but that's incorrect. I think that the pot of gold charm represents the jackpot for real pranksters in the species. Since the diamond is the perfect mix of love and pranks in this scenario, I would assume the pot of gold is a charm that's entirely focused on japery. While the heart denotes an entirely love-based relationship, I think that the pot of gold is entirely prank-based, making it a perfect foil at the opposite end of the spectrum. So, that's 3 down, 6 more to go. Let's discuss the star and balloon next. These other two corner pieces could represent the other extremes between the heart and the pot of gold, for when the feelings aren't exactly split 50-50 between love and pranks. The balloon could symbolize a relationship where the leprechauns attempt to prank one another but get too caught up in their feelings to do it properly, a sort of 25% pranks and 75% love split. I've chosen the balloon for this simply because sometimes love makes you feel floaty, and I thought that was cute. On the other hand, the star would be the inverse of this. A pair of leprechauns in the star charm category would spend most of their time joking with each other, but at the end of the day still come home and have a nice smooch about it. The remaining 4 charms, moon, horseshoe, clover, and rainbow, could all be considered variations on these as well. For example, halfway between the true love heart and the prank-leaning star is the moon. I see this as a relationship that still leans a bit much towards pranking, but has more romantic feelings than a pair that is purely in the star category. Another example, just because I like this one, the clover could represent a pair that tends to get lucky a lot due to their love-leaning nature. I'd assume the pranks between these two would often lead to romantic tension between them that they just couldn't bear to stifle. So, now that we have a solid idea of what most of these charms represent, let's make this chart a tad easier to understand. Ah, that's better. You can now clearly see the two extremes of love and pranks, as well as every step between them. Now, let's discuss troves. As you recall, a trove is a collection of 3 or more charms shared between 2 leprechauns. I believe that this means that the nature of leprechaun relationships is ever-changing. A pair could easily slide from one extreme to the other at the drop of a hat, much like the sliding scale of the prankster's gambit from early Homestuck, just with some romance thrown in for spice. If a pair attains the feelings associated with a charm, that charm is added to their collection, and as the relationship grows, the more charms they earn. A healthy leprechaun romance should try to attain at least 3, hence the term trove being necessary. Wow, that actually made a lot more sense than I thought it would. That's extremely cool. I'm quite pleased, actually. I hope you are too. I'll be honest, I started out on this journey as a sort of a joke, but I'm really happy with where we ended up here. I think that the fandom now has a completely usable form of leprechaun romance for shipping purposes. I can only hope that this revelation ushers in a new era of shipping, fanfic, and art that serves to revitalize the Homestuck fandom as a whole. If you want to find more of me, I'm on Twitter and TikTok at CalsCalzones, and I also make content for the Scavengers Network, who you can find at ScavengersNet if you'd like to see the huge array of content we have for you there. I'd also like to give a special thanks to my voice actors for this video. At Curlybug, at Colin M. Parker, at Unabashed James, at Wi-Fi Boyfriend, at It's Mason Amadeus, and at The Space Dweller. And of course, a huge thank you to my friend Kat at Ali Asperia for her work as Arania in this video, and for saying horrible, horrible things about Kermit the Frog. Thank you all so much for watching. Now get out there and collect your charms.
Do